Fine. My name is Mordechai. I'm sort of neighbors with Chacham Shmuel. He lives in Efrat, and I live on a farm, like 15 minutes from Efrat. Okay, so one day you guys are going to visit the farm, and you'll see that whole subculture of farm people who live off grid. I also am in Miluim, which is why you see me dressed the way I am and equipped as I am. And that's enough about me. I have four children. They're all grown already. And I've been teaching Tanach on and off for quite a few years. I just teach it because I love it. Tanach is amazing. And that's enough about me. And now we'll start talking about Tanach and how we're going to study. Okay. So, as we know, the Tanakh is Am Yisrael's civilizational charter, as it were, right? There's 24 books that have been canonized as the main central literature of the Jewish nation. Right? Tanakh, they call it the Bible. It's had an enormous effect all over the world. Even me, as someone who truly loves Tanakh, I can't get over how popular this has gotten among Gentiles. Like, it always blows my mind that some Korean is going to stop me on a subway and try to convince me to convert to Christianity because of Jesus or something, right? It's like it had this enormous effect on all over the world, and it's continuing to move and change society and civilization in ways that like just unheard of. There's no other book that had the impact that Tanakh had. I don't know if it's the most popular book, but it's definitely the most impactful literature ever. And the way it's studied has been debated for generations. Like, you have people who have completely opposing religions and opposing denominations that consider the Tanakh sacred, and they're murdering each other. And everyone is sure that they have the path to God and they have the right way to do it. And like, it's really a big zchut to come to Yerushalayim and learn Tanakh with the people, the nation, the civilization that kind of canonized it and came up with it in its original language and in its original context. Because I'm going to say something now that is very important, like meta principle for all of this. Okay, and that is, there is no one book, one text, that the text itself has all the truth in the text. The text is a signifier of something beyond the text. The text, it takes you somewhere. It's a path. It's a means to an end. And if you were given a text without its context, you would not know how to apply the text. You wouldn't know how to read it. And then you would find various people will read the text in their own way, and it would come up, it would just be it would be awful because people would fight each other over what the real meaning of the text is. The point is, the text has around it a civilization, a culture, a way of interpreting, and a way of understanding, and also, in our case, a way of keeping it current as times change. Because as times change, you'll notice even in Jewish traditional interpretation of Tanakh, ancient interpretation, the Second Temple period, changes by the time we get to the Gaonic era, and it changes again later on and until today. So you have to stay rooted to the original intent, and you have to be available to hear it in its modern context as well. And to balance those two things is a secret to everything, not just Tanakh, but specifically Tanakh. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys some questions before we start the text itself. How many of you guys can read Tanakh in Hebrew and sort of understand it? Raising hands. Okay. Online, let's see. I didn't look at you guys. Guys who are watching me online, how many of you can read Tanakh in Hebrew? Raise your hand. Okay. How many have read it in English and have covered, let's say, up to 50% or more, 50% or more of the Tanakh by raise of hands? That's almost everyone.
Tanakh is in
24 books, all 24 books of the Tanakh.
With the Old Testament.
Yeah, the Old Testament.
Was
yeah.
At the time, but yes.
Okay, so you went through at least 50% of it. So you're not all of it. So most of you are knowledgeable, more or less, with the who's who and all the characters involved and so on, right? Well, I'm just gauging the audience, see where to start and how we move forward. Okay, and my last question is, in this course, can I give you guys tasks to do at home? Like, let's say reading at home, and you'll actually do them. Easy reading, Tanach readings. You guys, by raising of hands, how many of you can be counted? Not hours of work a week, but a little bit of effort during the week to prepare, let's say, for the next class, so we can go deeper into the text. Okay, excellent, everyone, perfect. So everyone who didn't raise their hands, I'm expecting you to join. The majority wins. I expect you to join those who have. So we're going to begin. The book we're going to start with today is the book of Samuel. Right? The book of Samuel, I think, may have been the first book of the prophets that I was taught as a child, maybe Joshua first, but it was one of the earliest ones, but it had an enormous effect on me. And from understanding the book of Shmuel, book of Samuel, you can really understand a lot of things from the book of Kings and going back to the book of Shoftim. It's a very good microcosm of what the whole Torah is about, and it has a lot of interesting drama, individual drama and collective drama, the story of the Jewish nation, the Jewish people, and the tribes. So that's where we're going to start. The book of Samuel, just a little bit of background. The 24 books of Tanakh begin with the 5 books of Moses, right? Reshaped, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Dvarim. After those books, what goes next? Joshua. Joshua tells us a story of the conquest of the land of Canaan and the allocation of the land among the different tribes. Just in general, the tribal structure of the Jewish nation, which we read in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, Parashat HaShavua, it affects everything that's going to happen in Tanakh from the beginning until here. The allocation of the land causes all sorts of intertribal tensions and some conflict with other nations and other tribes, and it affects how the kingdom will develop and how prophecy works. Everything is affected by the tribalness, I guess, of Israel at the time. And after the book of Joshua, what's the next book? Shoftim. What happened to Shoftim? If you had to sum up the book of Judges from what you've read in 2 sentences, you have to explain to someone who's never heard of it. You have to tell them what it's about. Cliff notes.
Tension of the land and other nations trying to coexisting with other nations.
Conflict with other nations, holding on to the land. What else? Samson is one of the essential characters in Shoftim. What would you say Shoftim is like? What else would you say is the story of Shoftim? The session of judges, right? And that's why it's called Shoftim. It's judges, and the judges, they come from various tribes, and they're these loosely organized leaders, tribal chiefs, tribal leaders, and they try to keep the nation together somehow, both with a covenant with God and with enough solidarity to be able to defeat their enemies. And the book of Shoftim, like most of the Tanakh, is a tragedy. The Tanakh doesn't tell you very many happy stories. They don't end very well. The heroes in Tanakh are not successful. Moses doesn't get into the land. He doesn't see the nation move from this slave nation of idolaters to these monotheistic conquerors. He kind of dies before that, and there's a lot of tension between him and the people. And you find like all the other heroes of Tanakh, as we're going to see now in the prophets, there's a lot of focus on the negative, and we kind of gloss over the positive. So there's a lot of discussion of the crises as opposed to the victories and as opposed to the good things that happen. And there's a reason for it, because you learn more from crisis than you learn from success, right? And there's always this redemption arc going on, but it's always elusive. So the story of Shoftim doesn't end very well. If you remember how it ends with tragedy, and it ends with chaos, and it ends with basically some sort of anarchy. And the book of Shmuel Alef, begins in that atmosphere of darkness and anarchy. And that's where we're starting today. So everyone go to the book of Shmuel. The book of Shmuel begins, "V'hi ish echad min haramatayim tzofim mehar Ephraim." So there was this one man, one individual, from Ramatayim Tzofim, from the mountain of Ephraim, Ushmo Elkanah ben Yerocham ben Elihu, ben Tohu, ben Suf Ephrati. So we're given this description of a man who lives somewhere in Shomron. I think this is near, I think the place is called Neve Tzuf today, somewhere in that area, the mountain of Ephraim. Later, we're going to see from other sources in Tanach that he's a Levite, he's from the tribe of Levi. And he has this lineage is told, at least up until 3 or 4 generations. And now the story about him is going to happen. V'lo, shte nashim, shem achat Chana, v'shem hashenit Peninnah. V'yehi lePeninnah yeladim, u'lachana en yeladim. So all polygamous marriages in the Tanakh are always stressful. They don't always, when you hear a polygamous marriage, you know it's going to be problems. It's never going to be a peaceful, happy family. And the story is always going to be how that family gets through its tensions, okay, its issues. But already when you get this, also the word vayihi in Tanakh, it usually is the beginning of a tragedy, as most of the Tanakh is, but vayihi is not, it's usually a story that's not going to be great. Something bad is going to happen. There may be a redemption arc, it may come back, but vayihi is a setup for this was a bad time or something. You're going to hear something, it's not great, right? So the mood is being set. ועלה האיש ההוא מעירו מימים ימימה להשתחוות ולזבוח לאדוני צבאות בשילה ושם שני בני עלי חופני ופנחס כהנים לאדוני. So next part of the story, this man named Elkanah. What does Elkanah mean in Hebrew? He's jealous for God or jealous God. So there's some symbolism in his name, and we translate kana into jealousy, and it does mean jealousy, but it also means like a zeal in biblical Hebrew. So he's like zealous for God, and we already see that he has this. He's being characterized as someone who goes every year to the festivals in Shiloh. Shiloh is where the Mishkan is from Moshe Rabbeinu, and from the way it's told, it's hinting to you there's not many people going there, and we're going to soon see that Shiloh is not at its height. And in general, the Jewish story, the tribes are not at their best behavior, nor at their best success, the time of highest success. So Shiloh is this place where there's not many people going. Not, it's like when you go to sometimes you go to a museum and it's empty and no one's there, or a national park that no one notices. This is like the only like real, I guess, historical connection to Moshe Rabbeinu. This is Jewish. This is where the Beit HaMikdash. This is for all intents and purposes, the Beit HaMikdash, but it seems a bit empty. But he still goes. So he's this zealous guy. He has 2 wives, and he goes every year to this to worship. And the words they use here is lishtachavot ulizboach, to prostrate and to sacrifice. And over there you have these 2 gentlemen, Eli and Pinchas, who we're going to hear later, are very corrupt. So it's again a story of kind of sadness, corruption, emptiness. But there's this one man who's trying his best to keep the tradition in challenging times. ויהי היום ויזבח אלקנה ונתן לפנינה אשתו לכל בניה ובנותיה מנות. So when the day comes, the day of the sacrifice, he's this patriarchal character. He does the sacrifice. He divides up meat to his wives and to his children, and he's just doing his job. ולחנה ייתן מנה אחת אפיים, כי את חנה אהב ואדוני סגר רחמה. So there's a common theme in biblical family drama. There's oftentimes a woman who's barren and who's very stressed out about it, and she feels inferior, and that's what we have here as well. And what's Chana doing? Chana is kind of sad about it, so he's always trying to give her extra, trying to give her more attention to kind of make up for the fact that she's sitting alone and her co-wife or sister wife or whatever we call it has her children, and she has a whole family around her. Now, within that, obviously, there's drama. Both women are married to the same wife, so Peninnah is a little bit jealous, or so something like that. She's not happy with that. V'ki asata tzarata gam ka'as ba'avur her ima, ki sagar Adonai ba'ad rachma. So Peninnah is described as hurting Chana or insulting her or putting her down for being alone, so till she would lose her appetite. V'chen yaseh shana b'shana. So this is an annual drama, family drama, right? Like those of you Americans, I don't know how many Americans we have here. So you have families where you have like Thanksgiving dinner. So once a year there's Thanksgiving dinner, and there's always that one uncle that makes a scene or talks about politics or says something retarded, right? Or so you have that kind of situation is being described where Peninnah kind of ruins the atmosphere every year, and the husband Elkanah can't get a handle on it. He tries, but we'll see what he does. All this is relevant to the story that's coming out of here. What I love about this is that it's a very relatable family drama, but out of this family drama, which is like very individual about someone's feelings and how she's hurt and so on, out of this is going to be born a lesson for generations, like a collective lesson. No, not just one lesson, but many lessons. So that's the beauty of how the story is set up. We're in Pasuk Chet, 8, verse 8. ויאמר לה אלקנה אישה, חנה, למה תבכי ולמה לא תאכלי ולמה ירע לבבך? הלא אנוכי טוב לך מעשרה בנים. So he would always try to comfort her and say, oh, why are you so sad? Don't cry. I'm better than 10 children. I'm your husband. I'm here for you. Which you could see, he's trying, but this obviously isn't very successful. She wants to have babies. She knows she has a husband, but it doesn't work. ותקם חנה אחרי אוכלה בשילה ואחרי שתו. She eats, she leaves, right, quietly without talking to anyone, just like leaves the table. ואלי הכהן יושב על הכיסא על מזוזת היכל אדוני. So Eli Kohen, Kohen Gadol apparently, because his two sons are the Kohanim at the Mishkan, he's sitting at the entrance of the Mishkan, and she's coming towards the Mishkan. And the way it's described, again, this is the festival time. You would think there'd be tens of thousands of people there. They seem to be the only people there. That's the situation that we're in at the time, right? She's just showing up, and he's sitting there. V'hi marat nefesh, pasuk yod. She is bitter, she's upset. You can see she's angry, she's not happy. She's praying to God, and she's weeping and she's crying. And then she makes the following strange vow. And she says, Adonai Tzevaot. This is the first time the term Tzevaot is used for the name of God, and its significance of that is going to come up later. If you've seen the poverty, the sadness, the suffering, the oppression of your servant. And you remember, and you give your servant successful seed that I should give birth. So she makes this strange promise to, you would think if you don't have a son and you want a son to have at home, to talk to help you take care of you when you get old, to enjoy his company, his wise comments, right? That's what you want to have a kid for. But no, Hannah's like, if I have this kid, I'm going to donate him to the Mishkan, which is a very strange thing to do in her situation. It's a strange thing in general. Who donates a child to this empty Mishkan with just Eli over there? And it's a bit of a strange thing to do, but it's part of what makes the story so compelling. So, I know Moralo Ya'alel Rosho means he's not going to have any yoke. So usually young men in the Stone Age and the Iron Age, they helped their dad in the fields. They went to work. They had discipline. They had a job to do at a young age. You were allocated. You're going to be a shepherd. You're going to be a farmer. Whatever it is you're going to do. He's none of that. I'm going to and you also see what a strong character she is. She doesn't consult with her husband. She doesn't say, honey, listen, I want to talk to you. If we have a baby, can I just donate him to the temple? She already made the decision, and you're going to see that when she makes a decision, her husband's like, okay, fine, whatever you want. I'm not arguing with you. So sometimes you have these powerful figures in Tanach, and it's interesting to see the results of their decisions. She's praying more and more. And Eli is watching her mouth. He's watching like what she's doing, and he just finds it very strange. Which she's talking to herself. Only her lips are moving. So today, if you see someone at a holy site, standing and talking to himself and not making any sounds and crying, you know exactly what he's doing or what she's doing. But back then, prayer as we know it was not invented yet. We're watching the invention of the modern form of prayer. There were other forms of worship, like we saw earlier in the chapter. What form of worship did we see? No, we saw sacrifice in this chapter, yeah. We saw sacrifice and we saw prostration. So people would come to the Mishkan, to the holy site. There were these formalized sacrificial rituals that you did. That was how you communicated with God. And you saw the Mishkan, where the tabernacle, where all the relics from the desert were. It was touching to you. You felt this is the presence of God, and you prostrated. You didn't come up with these like personal prayers. It wasn't something that was done at the time. And sure enough, the Chazal, the rabbis, they attribute all of the laws of prayer and all of the soul of how Jews pray to Chana. She is the startup of Tefillah. Everything we know about prayer, we learn from her. And Eli is watching her. He has no idea what she's doing. In fact, he's taken aback and he's going to tell her off. All right.
Specifically Shmuel Alef, but what about Tefillah in general? Why is all Tefillah not the same as Shemona Esrei? Like we do it silently, but we move our lips like
So
that.
only the Amidah, Shemona Esrei, is considered Tefillah. Everything else that we do before that is a setup for Tefillah. So Kriyat Shema, it's not Tefillah. You know, Kriyat Shema, it's maybe is an oath of allegiance. It's set up for the experience of the Amidah. Right, the Psukei de Zimra is a setup for the Kriyat Shema. The brachot that you make in the morning, that's not prayer. The brachot in the morning, it's basically our ancient form of being aware and thankful of everything you've gotten. So in a regular person, is you have all these struggles throughout the day. You don't think to appreciate the fact that you have the ground to walk on and you're drowned, that you have clothing. So that exercise and thankfulness towards God is all part of the setup, which culminates in Tefillah. Tefillah is only the Shemona Esrei. And
people who only perform Shemona Esrei because they believe everything else is, the Rabbanan.
I've seen things like that, and I've been in situations where I didn't have time to pray the full service, so you have to prioritize, and then you do like Kriyat Shema and Amidah. That's right. So it's reflected in Halakha, but what we see Chana doing now and the actual prayer that we're probably going to get to next week, Chana's prayer, that is like the core formulation, both halachically, but more than halachically, the principle of prayer we're learning from her. But it's much more than just a principle of prayer, because she is also establishing the first major prophet establishing. She's giving birth to, and I guess launching this prophet into the world that would change Eretz Yisrael and the world forever. So this tiny, seems provincial and primitive tribal human story is really the launching pad for something truly grand. And that's like the magic of this book and all of the Tanakh. So what pasuk were we before I got carried away? 14? Yeah. She's talking to herself. Her lips are moving. She's not making a sound. Eli thinks she's drunk, which proves that the Shemona Esrei wasn't invented. There was no Amidah. There was no formalized prayer. Eli has had enough of this. He can see, bad enough, no one's coming to the Mishkan. And it's kind of desolate. And Am Yisrael is in a really bad situation, right? Now he sees these drunk women coming to the Mishkan. How long are you going to be a drunk for? Right? Go home, get sober up, right? And then come to the Mishkan. It's not how you behave. She responds, she says, Lo Adoni, no, master. Isha keshat ruach nochi. I'm a woman of suffering. I suffer. I'm going through a very hard time. I'm sure you've heard this before. I'm going through a difficult period. Yayin v'shechar lo shatiti. I drank no alcoholic beverage. Ve'espochet nafshi lifnei Adonai. I'm pouring my heart out to God. Al titen et amatecha lifnei bat Belial. Do not consider me a woman of, I was going to say ill repute, but it's not what bat Belial means. I'm not really sure what Belial is. What do you? There's all these theories. What do you think is the most convincing translation of Belial?
Belial is like two words put together.
Belial. What is Yal?
Like pit bottom where you can't go.
Like you're the bottom of the barrel. That makes sense. Biliyah, you can't like you can't get up from here. So it was a common pejorative in Tanakh when you want to like when you're really upset at someone, you curse them, you say you're ben biliyah or bat biliyah. Right? Bili'ol means like you have no yoke of heaven, maybe, yeah. But the people that use it sometimes are not people. If you look at all of the times that the term is used, it's oftentimes used by people who have no concept of a yoke of heaven either. So I think that interpretation is a little more kind of rabbinic, midrashic. But I think what Shmuel was saying is probably more correct. Someone was like just a way of putting someone down. So she says, don't think of me as such a as common pejorative. I'm going through a hard time. I'm crying. I'm really hurt. I'm upset, and that's why I've been talking, and that's what I've been praying. Vayan Eli v'yomer, and Eli responds to her and says, Lechi l'shalom, go in peace. Ve'Elohei Yisrael yiten et shelatech asher sha'alt me'imo, and the God of Israel will give you whatever you asked. ותאמר, תמצא שפחתך חן בעיניך, ותלך האישה לדרכה, ותאכל ופניה לא יהיו לאור. She heard this promise from the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol didn't know what she was praying for. He just said, I'm sure he's being a nice old Sephardic grandfatherly figure. Yeah, whatever you ask for, I'm sure God will help you. But for her, that was enough to make her feel like her prayers has been answered. And she comes back in a great mood. All right, everything's fine. Now she's happy. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's missing an Aleph.
Yeah, I was wondering where is that Aleph?
Right, so you're supposed to think or read it as she'elatech, what you requested. She'elatech is already a hint from the word shliyah, which is the womb.
Huh. Nice.
Where's
Chacham write this?
He's going to answer your prayer. He's going to give you. It's as if he already knows that she's asking for a baby.
He's hinting the answer to her prayer is hinted in the response. Because in Hebrew, Shilyah means what's the word for it? Shilyah is the amniotic sac or something. What Shmuel is saying is, I didn't know this before, even though we both studied from the same rabbi who's quoting. So it's bad on me, but it's misspelled. Now, the misspellings in Tanakh have been recorded over generations, and people interpret it in various ways. This novel interpretation says that the word she'elatech is supposed to be shin aleph lamed taf ha, right? Over here, it's shin lamed. It skips the aleph, weirdly spelled. So, person reads it, reading the story, it's weird spelling. What are you going to do?
And there's no hinting to that in English at all.
No, the English doesn't record a Hebrew spelling anomaly.
There's no hinting to like that.
The idea of amniotic sac, yeah, because it's hinted. It's like very broadly hinted. It's not obvious, right? I didn't know this, right? Shmuel knows this, right? Yeah, no, but you remembered. So in his answer, the shelatech, because the word shiliyah in Hebrew, shin lamed yod, is an amniotic fluid sac that falls out when the baby's born, and therefore, like, is a hint that your prayers will be answered, which is pretty cool. And about she's happy, something about that exchange made her calm. She felt like things are going to be good now, and she goes home. Little does she know the revolution that she sparked at this nighttime visit to the Mishkan. Vayeshkimu baboker. They wake up in the morning, they do their last prostrations, right? Elkanah Adonai. So he again is with his wife, and God remembers her this time. She gets pregnant, she has a son, Shmuel. She names him Shmuel, because Shmuel in Hebrew means like I've borrowed him from God. So she has this her consciousness is that I didn't get a gift, I was given a loan. Everything you can expand that to everything you get, but that's in her case the thing she's been waiting for her whole life, the thing that's been her mood setter, good or bad, whether her whole self-worth is invested in having a kid or not, as we've seen before, but she still sees that child as a loan, and she doesn't see the child as a gift or something that she's entitled to. And when she names him that's like his whole personality moving forward is someone who has this consciousness of someone who's loaned from God. And it would behoove us to think of like what a great way to live that would be, where you see everything, yourself included, as on loan, as nothing is taken for granted. It's a key to sanctity and it's a key to happiness. Because when you think in those terms, you'll never be upset, and because you don't consider anything that you don't consider yourself entitled to anything, and you live your whole life with a sense of mission, and in 1 second, and you live with a sense of mission, and then that gives you happiness and that gives you meaning. Yes.
It's a biblical word because it's used, for instance, in Shas when the
Yes. Pikadon is when you give collateral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when the children of Rabbi Meir died, the Bruria says like, hey, because they were a pikadon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He echoes the same sentiment. I was given God gave me something, he lent it to me. It was collateral, and you know, God has given, God has taken. That's the attitude. So the what?
What's the name between Shmuel?
Shmuel and She'iltiv me'im Adonai, Shmuel. You're saying it should be She'uel. It shouldn't be Shemuel, right? I was thinking the same thing. Because the mem is from Ki me Hashem She'iltiv. That's the Shemuel. So it's Hashem Shemuel. That's where the mem comes. He's from God.
What was it about?
It should be Mishael, maybe. I don't know. That's the name she chose, and that's the symbolism of it. I don't know why she chose that to conjugate it that way. I'm not sure. ויעל האיש אלקנה וכל ביתו לזבוח לאדוני את זבח הימים ואת נדרו, וחנה לא עלתה. כי אמרה לאישה עד יגמל הנער והביאתי ונראית פני אדוני וישב שם עד עולם. So her husband Elkanah says, okay, you have a baby now, everyone has children, everything is great, let's do the festival, the annual festival. She says, this year I'm not going because he's nursing and it's difficult for him to travel that far, but I'm going to go next time and he's going to stay there forever. Which is interesting. Like, again, you see the kind of character she is. You don't see him arguing and you don't see her preparing him for it. She made a decision, she knows what she's doing. And he says, okay, do what you want, שבי עד גומלך אותו, אך יקם אדוני דברו, ותשב האיש ותנק את בנה עד גומלי אותו. So he's in on it, he agrees, he doesn't resist her plan. ותעלהו עמה כאשר גמלתו, בפרים 3 ואיפה 1 קמח ונבל יין, ותביאו בית אדוני שילה, והנער נוער. So explaining the words, she rises up, she goes to Shiloh the following year with the child when he's already weaned, so he can kind of crawl around, walk a little bit. She brings 3 oxen. She brings a bit of flour, which is the flour offering, and some wine, and she brings him to the house of God in Shiloh, and the child is starting to grow. Nar, he's like beginning to have some consciousness. He can talk. He can communicate. They slaughter the cow. They bring the child to Eli. But Tomer, be Adoni, please, Master. I'm that woman back then who was praying. When you told me my prayer is going to be answered, this is the answered prayer. This is this child. My request, which can also be, over here the Aleph is used, but it could also mean my loan that I wanted. He's fulfilled my request. I have given him to God for the rest of the days. And they prostrate there. Okay, so I can't imagine what Eli thought. At his old age, he must have been. We know already that he's old because, as the story progresses, now he becomes a custodian, gets custody of maybe a 3-year-old, and Chana says this was the answered prayer, and now and from now Shmuel is going to be like the great hope of restoring the glory of the Mishkan and of the tribal setup and of the Israelite nation that was still being formed. We weren't yet a nation. We're still a collection of tribes, and this is this undercurrent of drama that's contains within it the solution to all the problems that we had in the book of Shoftim. Any questions so far that need to be addressed? We're good? No, I guess we can start with Tefillat Chana. Tefillat Chana, it's going to be a little bit, it's one of the more enigmatic parts of Tanach, okay? And there are various different ways of reading it. I'm going to study with you like the way what I see in this Tefillat Chana, but I encourage you all to doubt what I'm going to teach you today. And when you go home, review the prayer that we're going to see now. This is like one of the most foundational prayers, the first prayer that was done. Sephardic Jews still read Tefillat Chana in the morning before, as part of the warm-up of Tefillah. And feel free to look at other commentaries and see how they see it. And if what I'm saying you see somewhere else, or you see anything that contradicts what I'm saying, we'll get back to it next week. But for now, you guys are stuck with me, so we're going to do my understanding of Tefillat Chana. I don't know if we'll finish it all, but we're going to get started. Okay, you ready? All right. Pasuk Aleph. Does anyone want to read?
Where are you now?
Pasuk Aleph, Perek Bet, chapter 2. You want to read? Chavod. Well, I'm going to move around. Different people read, but Tefillat Chana. You do Ta'amim? You can do Ta'amim in Navi already? No, with Ta'amim is better. You can do Ta'amim. Shmuel just ruined it for you. Now you have to do a Ta'amim. Okay. So this opening pasuk already starts off enigmatic, right? You read this pasuk, like, what is she saying? Let's translate the words, and then let's see if we can figure out what the message behind it. What is she saying? What is she feeling? Okay. V'tomar alatz libi b'Adonai. What does the word alatz mean? Exalted, right? My heart is exalted in God. Ramah karni b'Adonai. What's keren? Keren is a horn. In biblical Hebrew, keren is pride, right? My pride in God is raised, right? Rachav pi al oivai. My mouth has been widened against my enemies. Ki samachti, because I'm rejoicing in your redemption. What is she talking about? She's anticipating a future redemption of the nation.
But her own condition is metonymy for the redemption of the people.
So it's connecting between her redemption, personal redemption, collective redemption. That makes sense, right? But what's this? Alatzli biba Hashem karama karniba, my pride and my exalting in God. So, and my enemies. Who are the enemies she's talking about? So you think this prayer is like about Peninnah? There are commentaries that think so, right? Now, I'm going to argue, and tell me what you guys think of this, that this prayer is her justifying philosophically prayer in general. People didn't pray. We considered, like, what do we call God? Hashem Tzvaot, God of hosts. What is a general like? What's a God, a host? What's a God of hosts? What does he represent? It's someone who gives you orders. You do what he says. You have a relationship of respect. You have a relationship of obedience. There is no personal relationship, right? You're in the army. You're not expecting the Ramat Kal to be your friend and have coffee with you. You take orders from him and you follow it. That's what you do. And then you have rituals. You salute, you do your exercise, you go to a ceremony where you get promoted or demoted. Everything is formulated. And we even see this over here. You go to the Mishkan, what do? You prostrate and you sacrifice. That's what you do. She has a startup. She says, no, we're going to do a new thing now. We're going to pray. You know what we're going to do? We're going to talk to God. So there comes in the exalting. I'm exalting. You have to have a bit of pride, okay, to even think of that in this context. And the enemy, maybe it's Peninnah, but I like to think that you know who the enemy is. It's not like an actual enemy. The enemy is not like an enemy like the way we think of it. It's an adversary, right? It's someone who it's all of you guys that would, if you were there at the time, you say, what are you doing? Who prays? It's not what we do. We just sacrifice and prostrate. The idea of praying, she's justifying it and she's saying, my mouth is wide. I have a response. I'm going to justify prayer. This is her in the process of in justifying prayer in this ancient monotheistic cult of worship, which didn't really have room for heartfelt prayer. And that is the adversary she's referring to.
This kind of prayer, what about the way it says closeness of Masadi, or all the prayers that they are in the reshaped?
So, first of all, Yitzuach B'Sadeh is not prayer. There's Yaakov praying, is Yitzchak Ye'etar L'Adonai. You do have that, but over here, in the book of Shoftim and in Shmuel, you don't see that. So at this point in time, prayer is not formalized. You had the Avot, who are prophets, having these prophetic experiences and so on, but prayer, the way she's doing it, where you have this heartfelt communication with God, it's something that you need to really justify in the context of like Hebrew monotheism. It's not something you just take for granted. We take it for granted today because we've been doing it so long. But if you think about it, what are you doing? What does God, what information do you have to give to God that he doesn't know? What can you ask for that he doesn't know that you need? What's the purpose of this whole ritual? So Chana, in her prayer, she's working that through, and that's what the sequence that we're reading here is about.
Seems very personal, especially because she's saying.
Oftentimes when I'm speaking to people, I say I'm not a feminist, but
I love conversations to start like that. I'm not a feminist, but
Sarah,
yeah.
Abraham, listen to Sarah. I think of Esther, of course, saving the entire Jewish population. I talk about Ruth, lineage of David. But you just introduced something I don't think I've ever thought about. Would it be fair to say, and Chana brought us modern prayer?
Yes, Chana invented modern prayer. Chana also was the mother of Shmuel, as we know him. Without Chana, Shmuel wouldn't have been the Shmuel we have, right? Chana was considered a prophet.
I brought it up in the sense of I have so much respect for the rabbis and so much respect for that part of Judaism. But I said we can never forget.
Yeah, oftentimes the place of women in our tradition is sometimes suppressed, but you can suppress it when you read the text. The same in the Talmud, and
Still that from you,
but feel free. What was your question?
I was just gonna say, when she says, my mouth is open wide against my enemies, it sounds very personal because, like you said, it doesn't really make logical sense when we're talking about Hashem. He knows everything we're asking for. He knows everything that's going on. So this is clearly for us.
Yeah, and I think that the enemy here, the only enemy I can point to, we could think of the enemy like what's your name? He suggested the enemies of Israel, maybe, right? It could be it's a prophetic allusion to that. That may be in the prayer as well. But I think on the base level, what Chana is actually doing right now, she's confident. She had this child. She's making this giant sacrifice, giving him to the Mishkan. So now she's enunciating her justification, her theological background for the institution of prayer. And this is the only way I can make sense of the whole sequence of this rather strange prayer. All right, look at the next pasuk. And over here, she's admitting, right? She's acknowledging, "En kadosh ka Adonai, ki en biltecha." There's no one as holy as God. There's no one other than God. Ve'en sur ke Elohenu. So she's acknowledging God is in this high place where you would think prayer isn't relevant or personal relationship isn't relevant. Yet, look at the next pasuk. Read the next pasuk. You. I'll remember the names one day. I forgot to do the names next time. All right. Okay, this pasuk is one of the most enigmatic pasukim in this strange prayer, but with my suggestion, it makes sense. She's speaking to that theoretical adversary who doesn't agree with prayer, and she's telling them, "Al tarbutu debrug gvoa gvoa." Do not speak high. What does it mean, speak high? The God that we just mentioned, who's above everything, who's the creator of everything, do not raise him above our ability to communicate. That's al tarbut debrug gvoa gvoa. Yetze atak mipichem. The word atak means, not necessarily false, but something like negative, something evil, something unfair, unjust. It would be unjust. What you're saying is unjust. Why? Ki el deot Adonai velo nitkenu alilot. What does deot mean in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew? No, not beliefs. It means in modern Hebrew, it means beliefs. In rabbinic and biblical Hebrew, deot is what we call midot, character traits. So God cares. That's what she's saying. She's saying, do not put God on this monotheistic, completely separate pedestal where prayer isn't relevant and our only relationship with God is prostration and ritual. No, we also have a communication channel. That's what she's trying to say. And he knows the paths and the ways of humans and the ways of nature, the way things work themselves out. And then she goes on to justify it. She shows you the following phenomena. Keshet Giburim, Hatim, the bow of the powerful, of the heroic, meaning people you would think are successful and they can shoot, they're missing for some reason. Sometimes you'll see someone who has all the reasons to succeed and he fails. V'nikshalim, and sometimes he who seems to be nikshal is a bit of a shlemazel, right? He's not that successful. You wouldn't expect him to succeed. Azru chayil, he gets strong, right? Seve'im balechem niskaru u're'evim chadelu. Those who are full of bread, right? Niskaru, they have to go to work. In other words, the wealthy sometimes lose their wealth and have to go to work. Ure'evim chadelu, and those who go hungry will become successful. Ad akara yalda shiv'ah, and over here is an allusion to her own case. Even akara, a barren woman who cannot have children, will have 7. V'rabat banim umlala, and she who has many children can be miserable. So her statement here is that you see in the world sometimes things you don't expect. You see people with great potential fail, and you see people you wouldn't believe in succeed. What does that tell you? That tells you that there's room to request, and there's room to negotiate with God, as it were, as strange as that seems. And that's the purpose of this tefillah. Should we finish the tefillah today, or yeah? All right. I'm actually impressed how much ground we're covering in 1 hour. It's pretty good. Any questions so far about what we're doing? All right. Adonai mimitu mechayeh. God will kill and revive. Morid she'ol v'yal. This is one of the few places that the Tanach hints, maybe a slight hint at the resurrection. There's no evidence that in the Tanakh they believe in resurrection. Over here, this is pointed out as one of them. He's Mamit and Mechayeh. What does Mechayeh mean? To revive. Though one can also say he gives life. It's not necessarily what it means, but I've seen this used polemically as evidence. Yeah.
But back to Biliam,
Yeah.
to what he said, there's many times, and we'll see soon with the sons of Eli, is people who don't know God or people who are, which really have no all. It says Morid Sheol Vayal. Says there are people, right, that they could be redeemed, but there are people that they're so far gone. There's no
hope for them.
They're going to be wiped out. They're going to get karet. And Bnei Belial is usually talking about evil people.
Yeah. Oh, but you agree that it's below all. That's what you think.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's below all, and Belial means that there's no possibility.
There's no way of yeah, you're
There's some part down.
irredeemable. Interesting. So over here again, she's Chana is saying, "Oh, you got this situation where God controls, kills, revives, brings down, and brings up. Adonai Morishu Ma'ashir makes one impoverishes and makes one wealthy. Mashpil af meromem." So this is the principle of providence, saying that because there's providence, so there's room for that relationship. Mekim afardal me'ashpot yarim evion. This, I'm sure you remember this in the Tefillah that we have. Will raise from the dust the poor, and the destitute will be also raised from the trash. Lohoshiv im nedivim, and he will be seated with the wealthy and with the honorable. The kiseh kavod yanchilem will have a chair of honor. Kila Adonai mitzukei aretz v'yashet aleim tevel, because to God is the heights of the earth, and He spreads the firmament or the sky or the clouds above Him. Was that tevel? Am I describing tevel right? The earth, yeah. So like he like spreads the earth over this mountainous regions, meaning just showing this juxtaposing the grandiosity of creation as well as the divine providence as possible for individuals who are worthy of such. Raglei Hasidav Yishmor, the feet of his followers will be protected. Urishaim b'choshech yidamu. This is also very nice imagery. What does it mean protecting their feet? Imagine if you're hiking in Israel and you don't have good hiking shoes and you have this rocky terrain and it's dark and you can sprain your ankle in a second. Dozens of times in Tehillim, you see the protecting your feet when you walk, because that was a big concern back then. And so God is protecting your feet. So you're walking in darkness, but yes, you'll be saved. You won't fall and hurt yourself. But the wicked, even if it's light, the wicked will trip and hurt themselves anyway. Because not everything is about power, and that's not what gives man strength. Adonai yahato merivav alav b'shamayim yar'em Adonai. God will cut his enemies before him and will thunder from the heavens. Yadin afse aretz, he will rule all people of the earth. Ve'yiten ozlem alko, will give strength to his king. Ve'yarem keren mishichon, will raise the horn, the honor of his anointed one. So she's taking it here directly from this seemingly individual to the general, and she's using her kind of testament to prayer / prayer to give hope for the future. Because what did we say at the beginning of class? We said that the Jewish people, the tribes of Israel, are in this really miserable state. The last incident we had was the concubine in the valley, Pilegesh Begiva. There's chaos, there's anarchy, the Mishkan is kind of empty, Eliah Cohen is old, his children are corrupt, no one is going to the Mishkan. The whole mosaic glory that we have from the Midbar seems to be dying out. And she's giving hope to this future that we can control our destiny. We can do something about it. And how do we do it? By faith and by prayer. That's the gift that she's giving everyone. I don't even know to what extent she knows what she's doing, but she is credited with giving us this framework of looking at the world. And until today, that's what we're still living with, of sparks, of leftovers of Chana's great innovation. Of that for today. So you guys online, I don't know, I haven't looked at the screen. Any of the online people have questions? I think they muted.
Shalom.
Shalom. Any questions?
Yes, about the possibility, or the, how would I say, the possibility of Hashem answering the prayers or not. In this case, she was successful. What's the deal there with so many prayers that are not answered for many people?
So she's not guaranteeing you that prayers would be answered, but she's saying that praying is a good thing to do. It could be answered, but that's not why you pray. You don't
Okay.
pray because you're going, but it's not an ATM. It's not that if you pray, then you're going to get the exact thing you ask for. But praying has a transformative effect on you. If we're a nation of praying people, we would be a more successful people collectively, whether every person's individual prayer is answered or not.
Right. Thank you. And what about the percentages of the prayers by Siddur, so to speak, and the prayers Chana style, so to speak?
Repeat that. What were you saying?
Yeah. Are there any kind of recommendations about percentages of how many tefillah? Of course, we have to do all the tefillah by the Siddurim, etc. But like, how much of this is enough?
How much of
Because we know,
is enough? Okay.
yeah, because we know there's quite a lot of Siddurim prayer-based tefillah. But how much time, we know, like, for example, Breslov recommends at least 1 hour a day, like speaking to Hashem. So that's kind of like the questions. It doesn't seem that there is any sort of like guiding, rules about or more promotion, because as you just said, I agree. A successful nation would be a nation that would be like praying a lot all the time, not only from Siddurim. That's like kind of like my
So there's
my
the
point.
answer to that question is a halacha question. The answer to that is, I'll give it to you in two parts. The halacha is the required prayer. There's only 2 services a day that are required, and I'll tell you already that it's shorter than what we do today. That being said, for the purposes of this class and for you guys, this is a conversion program, right? Right? That's what we do. The most important thing is not to do the exact minimum needed, but it's to like fit in and assimilate into existing communities. So even though you may be in a community that adds stuff to prayers that aren't really necessary or not really like part of the original service, at this point in your development, if you're like going to be Sephardic, use the Sephardic Siddur. Don't do anything fancy. Not yet. There's going to come a time for that, but I don't know if now is the time. Understand?
Thank
But
you so much.
the halacha is there. If you look at the Mishneh Torah, you can see the exact like what is tefillah and what is warm up for tefillah and what's not even warm up, like not even required at all. And if at home you don't say all of the things in the siddur, or even in shul if you don't say it, that's fine. That's okay as long as you do the Amidah, the Kriyat Shema, the Birkot Kriyat Shema, and the Birkot HaShachar, you've fulfilled your obligation.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
History question. Because in Pasuk Chet we have a pasuk that's almost literally to a parak of Kedalim that we say in Chalel. And it's also parak of Kedalim.
The Perek Chet in Tefillat Chana. Pasuk Chet in Tefillat Chana, yeah.
Then changes because the in Chalel it's not like this, but also the parak of Kedalim it finishes with something about also like pregnancy, like so the which text probably borrowed from which text?
I would assume that this Tfilat Chana is the raw, like unfiltered version that was later. I would assume this is the earlier one. Yeah, but it's a good call from Hallel. Any other questions? Okay, homework for next week. I don't know. I think we do this every Sunday, right? That Sunday is the Navi class. Right. What I'd like you to do is to make this class more efficient. I'd like you to review Tfilat Chana and the chapter we did. Just think about it. Let the text talk to you. See if you have any of your own takes on it. And if you can read the next chapter, so we're going to discuss the next chapter, but we'll all be conversant. So the next chapter, meaning it's not the whole chapter, let's see. It's from, let me see. We're in chapter 2, right? That's where we're at. Yeah, we just started chapter 2, finished chapter 2 up until 3. And then from 3 until 15. Okay? And until Pasuk Yud, until Pasuk Tetvav. Okay, we can do that? All right, excellent.